JJ, what needs to happen for the Knicks season to be viewed as a success?
This is a loaded question right here, right out of the gate, but I like it. To me, for the Knicks season to be a success, I want to see them in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Now, in a perfect world, Sal, I want them to be one of those top 6 seeds. I think that's what the Knicks' goal should be for the remainder of the regular season. But if we go back to where we were with this team in October and November, if you told me, all right, they get in the play-in, they win the play-in series, and they compete with a Milwaukee or a Boston, I'm going to accept that. So I'm going to keep that standard the same. Want to see them top 6, but if they get in that play-in, they can't lose the play-in. I don't want to hear they had a good year if they lose to Atlanta, who just fired their coach, or Washington, or one of these stiff teams. They got to find their way to the real playoffs and compete in real playoffs.
I'm going to answer it a different way, with the results not being a factor here. I think to a certain extent, it's already been a success because of Jalen Brunson. He has turned into a star that you know that they could build around now, right? They haven't had a point guard in forever. So have Jalen Brunson doing what he's doing. I think it's a success. Also, though, R.J. Barrett's lack of development is a failure. So to me, it's more about having Brunson, yes, but if they could ever get R.J. Barrett to where they hoped he could be when they drafted him 3rd overall a few years ago, JJ, that would be a success because ultimately, whether they get in the play-in, whether they get in the top 6, they're not winning the first round in all likelihood anyway. So I think it's more important about developing these players moving forward, having a better chance to go further in the Eastern Conference.
And I think with Barrett now, he's got to play well. If he does not play well, he's not going to be in at the end of these games with Josh Hart coming in. You could make the argument going into these final 20 games, their best closing 5. Forget about the starting 5. Who cares about that? Their closing 5. You could make the argument you're better off with Josh Hart. You're better off with Emmanuel quickly. So, yeah, R.J. Barrett has not had a season that I think we all expected because Brunson comes in, he's been great. Randall has bounced back. R.J. has taken a step back. He's got to play better over these final 20 games.
Yeah, I think for them, success looks like consistency, and they have 22 games to get it done. All right, let's take a look at the Eastern Conference standings for seeds 5 through 10. The Nets currently the 5th seed with the Knicks 2 games behind them in the 6th spot, both in front of the Heat, who just got Kevin Love, and the Hawks, like JJ mentioned, who just fired their head coach. Just a reminder, the 7 through 10 seeds will end up in the play-in tournament. All right, guys, so the Knicks and Nets, out of the 2 of them, which team is more likely to get into the play-in game? Sal, let's start with you.
I think it's the Nets are going to be in the play-in game. I do think the Knicks are going to end up finishing in the top 6, mainly because the Nets traded off KD and Kyrie. I mean, obviously, with those 2 guys there, you figured they were a lock for a top 6, and a team that could, if they got everything together, could have went on and maybe won a championship. So without that, I think they're solid. I think the Knicks are better. You want to argue that Miami comes up from where they are now in the 7th spot to catch the Knicks? Maybe, but I think either way, Brooklyn falls down. So I think the Knicks are going to be in that top 6, JJ. I would think the Nets will be in the play-in.
I'm right there with you. They got the best player in town in Jalen Brunson. And if you look at Brooklyn's schedule tricky. Brooklyn does not have Kevin Durant, does not have Kyrie Irving. Now, what scares me with Brooklyn is Jacque Vaughn has done a wonderful job. You know that team is going to play hard, so I expect them to be right there. I don't think this is going to be a cakewalk for the Knicks because they got Boston coming up a couple of times. They have the Nets next Wednesday. I do think the Knicks, to your point, will be one of the 6. It's possible both end up in the original 6 because Miami could fall out of this thing. Nets have a 2-game edge on the Knicks, though, and the Knicks need to find a way to beat the Nets because that tiebreaker could come into play. You beat Brooklyn, it's 2v2. You lose to Brooklyn on Wednesday, they have the same record. All of a sudden, Brooklyn has that leg up. But the Knicks, to me, less likely to be in the play-in.
Yeah, I agree. And we look at the trade deadline, you look at which team gave up the most, and it's obviously the Nets, like you mentioned. They were a championship-caliber team before KD and Kyrie left. So for the Knicks, I do think they have a better chance of, you know, making it to the Eastern Conference first round or making it out of the play-in.